C10 Talk, episode 175. Terry Rose and Domino. 1968 C10, back from Saudi, part of our Saudi series. Here we go.
I think most had the expectation I can get 20 to 30% more over there than I can here because those vehicles aren't available there. I mean, they can get all the exotics, they can get all the high-end everything that you can get from all over the world. What they can't get are these American hot rods and these American trucks. And so there was that expectation of getting essentially a 20 to 30 and maybe more % premium. There was some that thought they could get double, triple type premiums. And some of that sticker shock, I think, did slow down some of the excitement from potential buyers over there. Worst case, they're like, well, I'll just wait till it ships back and I'll buy it myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and I'll buy it through the U.S. And, you know, so there was a lot of that too. People getting overly excited of what they thought. I mean, people were really swinging for the fences and like, I'm going to get an extra $200,000 out of this vehicle that may or may not be worth it. You know, we all know you typically don't get out the cost of a build when you do these things. We don't necessarily do it as an investment and trying to make money off of them. If you were expecting that, you were greatly let down.
Damn, son.
Let me tell you what Melbourne Toast is packing right here. I've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some bucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man, he's a television repairman. Got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth clapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
What's up, everybody? C10 Talk coming at you. A little catching up with Terry Rose, and this is kind of going to be our Saudi series. The guys all went over there last year. If you remember, I interviewed Gary Case and Boris Marianovsky, Mr. Street Machinery himself, and they were all getting ready to go over to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And that was November 21, 22-ish, where that kicked off. So they all went over there. They sent their trucks, their cars, their stuff, the vendors. And this is kind of my follow-up for some of the guys. I definitely had a lot of guys reach out to me after that interview. And as stuff has started to come back, people are like, hey, whatever happened with all that? So what better way to find out than to reach out and interview some of the folks that went over there? Some good, some bad, some ugly, some whatever. You know, we're going to see. We hear rumblings, we hear stories, and I have kind of told you some of the things that I've heard, but why not just reach out to them and find out firsthand if they liked it, if they'd go back, what they do different, and what their whole perspective was on the actual show, the auction, and everything else. So Terry Rose, who built Domino, or they essentially debuted Domino at SEMA 2015. Tim Strange, Strange Motion, Mr. Rod Builder, and Terry is the client. But Terry built this truck, started to, and then reached out to Tim, and Tim finished it up. But you'll get a real good idea what kind of guy Terry is. Really, in my opinion, he's a great dude. So I thought I'd reach out to a few of these guys and do some follow-up interviews. We'll kind of see how it goes over the next couple weeks. So that's today, Tuesday. Wednesday, we've got Legend series over on the sister station, OBS Talk. That's going to be Alan Budnik. Yes, Budnik Wheels, Mr. Alan Budnik. And what I'm looking to do kind of intertwined in the OBS stuff is some of those OGs, some of those guys that were, big time in the 90s, that were building these trucks, that started that whole sport truck movement, and reach out to them. Because just like you found out with Paul Hitch, Keith Seymour, who worked in the factory in the 80s, if we don't grab that content, we can lose it. So I want to make sure we can get as much as we can. The other thing that we're going to continue to do is our builder series. So live on Instagram and on YouTube. I've been doing them on Fridays. I didn't do it last Friday because my son's birthday. This Friday, I'm on duty. So the way my shift works for the fire department is I'll work 2 days consecutive, meaning 2 Fridays, and then I'll have 4 Fridays off. So I'm on Friday this week. That means I'm on Friday next week. And I'm going to move it to Thursday. So Thursday, whatever the hell the date is, I will be over at Matador Rod and Custom, who also is Matador Powder Coat. So that's Caesar Mata. And we're going to be doing our live at 6 p.m. AZ time. If you've got paint, body, powder coat, sandblasting, just Modelo time, whatever it is, then you've got time for Matador. So that'll be 6 o'clock on Thursday. So Tuesday, C10 Talk. Wednesday, OBS Talk, Legend Series, Alan Budnik. Thursday, we're going live, YouTube and Instagram, Caesar, Builder Series, coming at you. So, busy week. I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope we're getting enough content out to you. You're probably going stir crazy. I totally hear you. At least, maybe you got your stimulus check. Maybe you got some more time to work on your truck. So that's, if there is a silver lining somewhere buried in there, is, because it's always the struggle. I got enough time, but I don't have enough money. I got a lot of money, I ain't got enough time. Well, hopefully you've got time and, it's kind of forced on you. And I know everybody wants to get out and just get things back to normal. One thing you can do, we did a couple weeks ago, and I didn't mention on the last episode, but a kid had a birthday party and he couldn't have the party. So a bunch of truck people drove by his house. I think there ended up being like 400 different vehicles. Pretty amazing. And they, it made the news and all that stuff. But you guys can do that. I mean, if you think about it, kind of a quarantine cruise. Get a couple of your buddies, hey man, and hit the road. Fuel's cheap as shit right now, so why not? Hit the road, get 3-4 of your buddies, maybe 10, and do a little cruise. Why not? I know here locally, Arizona, I work this Saturday. I know I work Friday and I work Saturday. I do 2 days on and then 4 days off. So I'm going to miss this cruise this Saturday, but C10 Club Arizona's got a little quarantine cruise going this Saturday. I challenge you to do the same thing in your neck of the woods, wherever that may be. Get some of your homies, get some of your people, and take a little trip. Oh, what else do we have here? Shows. Ah, man, I had to make a whole page just for some of these shows. So much going on, and I can only imagine because things have postponed, and we are living this social distancing, this quarantine world craziness. That once things start to get back to normal, these shows are going to be a hit, and the shows that are lucky enough to be at the end of the year, hopefully there's no worry for them. So here's what I have. I'll just blow through this really quick. June 12th through the 14th, LS Fest West. They rescheduled that. It's going to be under the lights in Las Vegas. So that's LS Fest West, June 12th through the 14th, Vegas. Vegas, baby. July 11th, the 10-year anniversary, Lebanon, Tennessee, Southeastern Truck Nationals. Used to be the GM Truck Nationals. Now he's got it as the Southeastern Truck Nationals, and that's in Tennessee. That's hosted by Brian Ashley, the C10 deputy. He puts that together. Huge show, biggest C10 show east of the Mississippi. So check that one out, July 11th. August 8th, C10's on the Capitol, all the way back up in the Pacific Northwest. C10's in the Capitol, Olympia, Washington, August 8th. That same weekend is going to be the Pro Touring Shootout. That's our buddy Arnie over there, Tricky Air, August 8th and 9th. I think that's at Bowling Green at some raceway. I used to think it was in Tennessee, but I think it's in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So, Pro Touring Shootout. That's August 8th and 9th. September 4th through the 6th, Battle in Bama. They moved that one, and Craig Raleigh does a great job. I love seeing the content on that show. I really need to make that one and make it happen. September is going to be a busy month. September 4th through the 6th, Battle in Bama. September 12th through the 13th, up in Woodland, California. That's going to be the C10 Intervention. We went last year. That was their second show. This is their third show. And it's in a new location, Woodland, California, C10 Intervention, NorCal. September 19th, Waxahachie, Texas, C10ville, USA. The mayor himself, C10 Mayor Terry Hill, and C10's in the park. I think that's probably about their 6th anniversary, but They blew the doors off of everything. They're breaking records all the time. This was the one where they sold out so fast in the computer, and they ended up taking on extra and so on and so forth. You know, he likes to cap it at like 900. I think he's ended up at like 1,200 because he ended up having so many guys register. It's a good problem to have. Waxahachie, Texas, September 19th. October 24th in Oakboro, North Carolina, second annual C10 Fall Revival. That show had like 250 their first year, so it's going to be another big show. It's a fall show. It should do well. October 24th, Oakboro, North Carolina, C10 Fall Revival. November 3rd through the 6th, SEMA 2020. And I think, you know, everything's looking like that's a go. And then at the end of November, the granddaddy of them all, the 10-year anniversary, a 2-day show this year, November 20th through the 21st, Dino's Chevy Only, the quintessential get down. Make it there, baby. 10 years. I can't wait. So we're kind of working through all this crap right now, but it's going to be big time as the year kind of progresses. So it ought to be a good one. Remember, we're going to come back. We're going to have a few more interviews from this Riyadh series that we're doing. Tons of shows. Get ready. I know you're out there. You're thinking about it. So we got good times ahead. We just got to kind of stick with it. Let me read off a few reviews real quick, and then I will get you over to Terry. Thank you guys who have taken the time to leave me them reviews. I'm getting caught up. I'm getting caught up quick here. So why don't you guys get me uncaught up? Take the time, iTunes, and leave me a review. I appreciate it. 5 stars by Uriel. How do you say that? Uriel Q. Ronnie, great show, man. Thanks for all the content, all the info, and making me want to just go hard on my C10 and get it running. 5 stars. Uriel. I don't know how to say that name. I suck at that one. Uriel Q. Yep. I need help on that one.
5 star, perfect. Thank you.
Never Quit, 5 stars by M. Deal 71 C10. Ronnie, you have built a cool brand and a polished podcast. Say that a few times. Polished podcast. I listen while I'm mowing the yard, exercising, or while wrenching on my 71 C10. Never gets dull. Great stories, great people. You ain't lying. The trucks are cool, but you, the people, are cooler. M. Deal 71 C10. Never Quit, 5 stars. Thanks, brother.
5 star, perfect. Thank you.
Let's do one more. Awesome podcast, 5 stars by Coleman158. Rad dude sharing rad stories, growing and connecting the C10 community. Cole, Provost Pimp, love that dude. Thanks, Cole. Thanks for doing that.
5 star, perfect. Thank you.
You guys, please take the time to share the pod, love the pod, like the pod. Your mama, your sister, your cousin, your brother, I don't care. Let them know about C10 Talk and the sister station, OBS Talk. It's moving, it's shaking, and we're making it happen. All right, guys, let's see here. What else do I got here? Audio on this one. So when I started talking to Terry, he had the phone up to his face, and I was like kind of letting him go. And then finally I was like, dude, put that phone down and put it on speaker. So right about the 8.5 minute mark, you'll notice huge improvement. Bear with it. Stay strong. You can do it. It's worth it. I promise you. Terry's a rad dude. So let's get into it. 68C10 _ Domino. Here you go. Have a great week, guys. Late. Hey, guys. I've got Terry Rose. Terry Rose is, the owner of 1968 Domino, Strange Motion, Tim Strange, SEMA, 2015. And I'll be honest with you, Terry, I've talked about it a few times. Definitely a guy that I wanted to get on this show, and just hasn't always worked out. But we're getting you on, and we're going to talk about Riyadh, Saudi, you and your truck. So welcome to C10 Talk finally. Thanks for taking the time to spend with us and the C10 Nation. And let's talk about your journey with your truck and the auction.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, again, your truck is it is special. I was kind of drawn to that truck. I remember seeing it at SEMA. You guys won some awards. Obviously, anything that Tim Strange does is not only is it high caliber, but it's you get the kind of the ambiance of Tim because he's so entertaining. And then you're like, oh, what's it's like high school. Like, there's a fight over there. What's going on? Everybody runs over there, and you're like, oh, it's Tim. Oh shit, look at that truck. Oh, they built that truck. So it's really a cool thing. So for the audience, you can check it out, 68C10 _ Domino. And just to kind of let them know about Domino, that name came from the build, right? So that was one of those trucks where, kind of the old snowball domino effect. You think you're going to start out something small. Next thing you know, a year later, you and Tim, and you got what you got.
No, absolutely. When I first brought the truck down to Tim, it was going to be a simple restoration. We bought it several years prior. It was kind of in celebration of our youngest son turning 1, and then we had a newborn on the way, and our whole plan was to kind of bring it down there and just do a simple restoration. And about midway through, he was like, "Hey, you want to take it to see her?" And that's where it all started. That's the whole domino effect. Next thing I know, I've got a supercharged LS3 and custom chassis and more body mods on a C10 than you should probably put on one. But it turned out great experience. Nothing I would ever change. I mean, it's one of those memorable things that I wish everybody could kind of experience and kind of check off their bucket list. So it's been great.
The first thing I think about when you say that is like, you're saying like, hey, when, one of the boys turned 1, you've got one on the way. And now granted that was SEMA 2015. So we're approaching the 5-year anniversary of the debuting of that truck, but those boys now are like 12 and 14, correct?
Right. 12 and 13. So when we first bought the truck, we bought the truck in 2008. And it was when, my family and I, we'd moved back from Texas back into Tennessee. Most of my wife and my family was here in Tennessee. So it was kind of a little bit of a family celebration of us coming back. Like I said, the family expanding. And, I guess I probably did leave out about 5 years in there where, as any father with young kids realizes how much time those kids take up. So I did a lot of that dismantling, getting it down to bare metal, getting a lot of the rust cut out, and then just ran out of time. And that's where, fast forward a few years, that's where I got in with Tim. And I got to meet Tim through the TV show. He was on Search and Restore, which was being filmed here also in the south side of Nashville. And I got to meet him through my work and meeting with him, and he and I became friends. And like I said, then next thing we know, after the show's done, we get him involved with my truck, and that's where everything kind of progressed from there. So, it was a long time coming.
Time flies, really, and that's what's so crazy about it when you have those kids and you kind of timestamp things based upon, 2 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old. You're like, holy shit, where did the time go?
Absolutely, man. It does. It goes way fast, and the fact that we've got essentially teenagers now. I mean, one teenager, one preteen, but my preteen he's wearing he just turned 12, and he's wearing a size 12 and a half men's shoes. So
wow.
he's going to be a big one. Hopefully I can still take him out when I need to as he gets older, but he's going to be a big boy.
Holy moly. Well, what my dad told me was fear and common sense. Only let 2 things stand in your way. And you got the OMS, so you got the old man strength. So just keep that to your advantage and a few pressure points.
That's right.
And just make sure they know. I still know where those your weaknesses are, because if he's got 12 and a half and you're no small guy either. So definitely going to be some big kids over there. So the show in perspective of Riyadh, you build this truck, award-winning truck, SEMA truck, Tim Strange, Domino. Take us through just the decision, once you were approached, should I sell this truck, and how you came to that resolution.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you, that was probably one of the toughest decisions I had to come up through, because, I just finished telling you a little bit about what the truck meant to us from a family perspective. I mean, why we had the truck. And so when this opportunity came about, I mean, it was quite a while of discussion before we finally decided to pull the trigger. And ultimately, the reason why we chose to is as the boys are getting older, I wanted a vehicle that they could take out and drive. And Domino is built to drive, but at the same time, it's a show truck, and it's got the detail on it, the customization to it. I mean, you bump a finger on this truck, and it's a lot of work to kind of get back into place. So that was one of we didn't really get to enjoy it as a family. I mean, we take it out and we show it as a family, and my boys would go to the shows and stuff with me, but it's nothing we haven't really been able to drive. And so we've got some other projects in the works to kind of resolve that, but that's what was kind of the deciding point of, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity at the time. We weren't sure whether this thing's going to repeat. We're still not sure if it's going to repeat, but it was kind of that once in a lifetime opportunity that what I finally decided was, if I don't do it, would I regret it? And that was the reason we chose to go that route. We knew there was a lot of risk. I knew there was a lot of naysayers, and basically saying I wouldn't do it. But after talking with all the folks that were involved, the guys from Worldwide, the guys from Bob Year, I mean, these are all former SEMA people, a lot of industry leaders, a lot of good folks, and we were putting a lot of trust in a lot of people. Passport picking up the vehicles, I mean, everything of that matter. It was all the top end companies, and so we decided to roll the dice, and it was a tough decision, but I was at a point where, because the whole point of it was we thought everything was going to sell, but I always kept in the back of my mind of what if it didn't, and so I never spent money that I didn't have yet, so I didn't go out and try to think about what my next build was. I was really trying to see, would it sell? And if it did sell, then I would make plans of what I wanted to do next. So I was trying to plan it out the best that I could. But at the same time, I was torn. And my wife even said that. She was like, well, what's going to happen when it does sell? How are you going to feel? And to be honest, I didn't know. I was probably going to be sad, I'm sure, because we did have so much tied up in the vehicle. So it was a tough decision. But it came down to it. We were at a point where we had to make a decision. I decided to let it go, and then we filled out all the paperwork, and next thing I know, the truck is loaded up and it's gone. So it went pretty quick.
Okay, guys, well, we switched out the audio a little bit. He's on speaker now, and my next question would be, I guess, I almost wonder at what point, or did you struggle? Because what I was hearing was, you're like, whether it's Misery Loves Company, or if Tommy's jumping off the bridge, are you going to jump off the bridge? So what I would start to hear, once a couple key players, once it was like, hey, Boris is sending this many cars. Hey, Richard's sending this many cars. And you're like, if those guys, and you have some other friends in the industry, you're like, hey, if those guys are doing it, it's got to be legit. It can't just be total bullshit. There's no way those guys are going to, load up their trucks, their cars, there's high-end cars. We're talking high-end stuff. For the audience, I'm going to say, they were really looking for six-figure vehicles and more. So you can figure it out. If it was $50,000, they weren't considering it. They wanted $100,000 vehicles and more going. Did that also, walk us through that? Because this is definitely an emotional roller coaster, considering what this truck meant to you, your family, and the journey of the build.
No, absolutely. And I did do a lot of that. I mean, when I first heard about it, I heard about the event going on. Tim and I talked about it. And then right after that, I actually saw a post from Boris at Street Machinery. And so I reached out to him, and I wanted to try to find out what his perspective was. And he was like, absolutely. He goes, I've done all my research and everything's legit. I'm sending, I think at the time he had sending 6 or 8 or possibly 12. And I think he ended up I can't remember what his final number was, maybe 8. But I talked with him. And then right after that, I saw a post by another friend from Angelo Vespi, who owns a couple of really high-end vehicles. And so I did the same thing. I called him up and was kind of getting his perspective. And they both had some great points. It was like the people that were involved were all very key, influential people in our industry. People with no reason to not trust. I mean, they were some very legit from a business standpoint. And so after talking with a few, I got comfortable, sent in my application, and within a couple of days got accepted, so I guess it wasn't an application. I guess it's all the paperwork for it, but then got the approval that it was going, because you're right. They were looking for particular types of vehicles, mostly high end, mostly 6 figures and up. There was some 7-figure and up type vehicles in there too. So, I mean, it was an incredible collection of vehicles.
And it's not like you had a year to process it. It happened so fast when you consider, you're giving away one of your kids. It's like, I've been through a lot with this vehicle, and you're like, and it just happened so fast. So when you kind of like, you hear rumblings, and then it's like, boom. And then you start to think, oh shit, this might really happen. So definitely an emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely. Because I mean, it got real fast. I mean, when you're sending titles and power of attorneys, I mean, and I know you do those things through the big auctions and stuff that we have here in the States. So that's all part of it. But when you start doing that, I mean, hopefully everybody did the same amount of research I did, in reaching out to who the key players were, and even doing a little history, trying to find out what some of these people's backgrounds were. So, when that was some scary moments when I'm signing documents, giving power of attorney and handing over my title, knowing that they can do the transaction, and they're essentially the owners at that point. So it was definitely nerve wracking. It did require a whole lot of trust and faith in the process and the people involved. And, that's took a whole lot of praying too. So it was definitely nerve wracking.
Did you end up, calling your insurance guy and saying, hey, I want to make sure I take a bigger policy, or did they recommend, or did they say, hey, you're covered on land, you're covered? Because that was a big thing for us that, just kind of talking amongst one another was, well, it might be insured, in the States, it might be insured when it gets to Saudi, but is it insured on open waters? And that was one of the little, asterisks out there. Did you feel like you were covered, if something should happen to the truck when it was en route?
No, and I asked those same questions too, and they were very clear. They communicated very well, and if you had questions on any of the process, they definitely answered your questions, and that was one of mine. And they shared everything. They're like, here's the companies that are doing the transport, here's the insurance companies they use, here's everything. I mean, they were completely transparent with all of that. So there was definitely coverage from all aspects of it, from the time they picked it up in my driveway to the time they dropped it off in my driveway. It was under other companies' controls and under their insurance. And so for me, I didn't do anything with my insurance company. Everything was kind of handled utilizing theirs. So it was really just going through that whole process. But, and that raised questions too. And I think there's probably some people that might be feeling some of that now. It's like, okay, if there was damage? Unfortunately, I didn't have damage, but if there was damage, who and where takes the blame, and which insurance company am I going to be fighting with? And so hopefully there's not a whole lot of that going on. I'm assuming there could be, but like I said, I was very fortunate through all of this and haven't had any major problems.
So, it's just I think you have that risk with whatever. I do think that when I say just, I guess from a media perspective, and then talking to other guys who sent stuff over, I really was trying to wait till everybody got their stuff back primarily, because then once you have it back, then you can really make, an assessment, because you're almost like, hey, Terry, can we do an interview? You're like, I don't want to say anything. I want to make sure Domino's back, and it's like, I don't want them holding my truck hostage because I said this, that, or the other. So I really wanted to wait till guys got their vehicles back. And again, just to put this in perspective for the audience, we're talking, it's mid-April. That auction was November 21st, 2nd, or 3rd, something like that, of 2019. They picked up those trucks. What was it? Was it September? Was it like October? September?
Yeah. It was in September when mine was picked up. And at that point, I was some of the latter ones picked up. I mean, most had already went at that point. And so, I mean, you're looking at 7-8 months of the vehicles being gone.
I do know a guy, well, and unfortunately for a lot of people, once they let go, they let go of their truck, their car, and then it didn't sell. Let's go with this question. When you loaded that truck, when you loaded Domino up into the truck to into the freighter, into the, whatever I'm thinking the Connex box storage container, when you loaded it up, when you saw it last in the States, did you think that it was gone? Did you think it was coming back?
No, I really thought it was gone. I think from all of the communication between all of the people that were sending cars and just kind of what we heard from Worldwide as well as Bonnier, I think we all had the expectation that everything that was going over there was going to be sold, and that essentially that nothing was coming back. So, I've always been fairly cautious when it comes to that type of thing with business and stuff. And that was one of the reasons why I wasn't trying to spend money I didn't have yet. Not thinking that, okay, it's not going to sell, but maybe if it sells, it's not at the same number that I thought it was going to be. Or, just the fact that I didn't know, I was trying to make sure I didn't get ahead of myself. But I do know a lot of people that did. And, as we kind of talked through, and because we really felt like nothing was coming back. And worst case, this was probably everybody getting hyped up on the whole deal, because obviously the Saudi royal family's involved, and, everything of what they were trying to do. This was the first time event of this type, of this magnitude over there. And we all knew they wanted to make it a success. And the thoughts were, is like, even if there were leftover cars, maybe they were going to be purchased up through the Saudi family. I mean, those were some of the types of discussions that were being had prior to it all. So obviously, as the results, being that we're talking to everybody, that's all the vehicles that came back, which was essentially just about everything, probably 95% of the cars are coming back, if not probably higher percentage than that. It did. It didn't meet our expectations from that standpoint, but it's, for me, it was just more, would I ever see it again? Well, I knew I was going to make the trip over there, because it was, to me, that was just another great incentive or great perk of the trip, of having the opportunity to go do that. That's one of the things I can say, with the truck. To be able to say I've taken that truck to Saudi Arabia, to Riyadh, to the other side of the world for a huge truck and car show of the highest caliber. Once again, that's another once in a lifetime type event that I'll forever be grateful for. So it didn't sell, but I didn't think it was coming back. But now that I've got it back, and it's out in my garage, I go out and clean it and look at it and start it, and it's almost like it's never left. And I get, on top of that, I get that great experience.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's easy to kind of jump over that and talk about the truck, talk about the emotion. You guys did get compensated, right? So once your vehicle was accepted, the rumor was that everybody was getting, essentially $10,000 to kind of subsidize your trip, your journey, and you got a trip to go. Hey guys, one of the biggest upgrades I was able to make on Orange Slice is my lighting. Think about this. You've got your old school sealed yellow lights. You put in new United Pacific headlights, boom, quadruple the lightage. They look better, they perform better, and guess what? They're safer. So you've got LED options, you've got new headlight options, they look great. And honestly, we upgrade so many things with our trucks, why not upgrade the lighting? When you do, think United Pacific. Here's the best part. You get to save 15% off all C10 products by using code C10Talk15. Save 15% off all C10 products by using code C10Talk15. Go to upcarparts.com. That's right, upcarparts.com. I don't think you'll forget it. Save today. Thanks, guys. Give them a follow on social media too, Facebook and Instagram. Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. It all started in the original owner's garage. From humble beginnings of a couple parts in a garage to a 2-building manufacturing facility making over 6,000 parts, Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They not only design the products, but also design the tooling to build the products, guaranteeing quality control. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. Aluminum strips are double polished, creating a mirror finish, and crystal clear anodized. They use the highest quality, hand-selected show quality wood that will hold up over time. Why? Because it's kiln dried to precision moisture levels specifically for Marquet. They stock oak, pine, and mini exotics, guaranteeing extremely fast delivery. All parts are manufactured in-house in Oklahoma City, USA. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com. you guys did get compensated, essentially $10,000 to kind of subsidize your trip, your journey, and you got a trip to go.
Right. And which is, and when you start hearing that type of incentive, when you first hear it, you're like, well, that's too good to be true. But I mean, almost immediately after getting accepted, I had the deposit. I mean, I had a direct deposit into my account, and it was very legit. And the next thing I know, I mean, they're booking my flights, and they're, booking my hotels and telling me where everything's at. And this was a major investment by not only from the companies that were involved, but from the Saudi government, the royal family. I mean, their intent to make this a world-class event was essentially a no expense spared type of event. I mean, if you look at the amount of people that they sent over, the amount of exhibitors, the booths, the number of cars, when you're sending 500 cars over there from the U.S. into Saudi Arabia, I don't know what the cost per vehicle is, but if you think about that, that's millions of dollars just to ship them over there. So the intent for everything that they wanted to do was incredible. And I'll tell you, the actual show itself, we're talking 5 days. It was in the evenings. It was essentially from 4:00 in the afternoon to about midnight every night. It was spectacular. I mean, everything from monster trucks to drifting cars to high-end exotics to all of the high-end show cars. There's concerts every night. There was, the food courts, and everything that was out there was just was amazing. And what they were put together, if we were to put together an event like that, let's say there was something in Vegas, or if there was something in, at any of these big shows in Atlanta, it would be the talk of the industry. Mm-hmm. And so what they were able to accomplish was pretty incredible.
And with the time that they did it in.
Right. I mean, this was all, and that's one thing that I don't think most people realize. I mean, this thing was put together in such a short time frame. And one of the things that I learned, and I heard it a lot over there while I was there, was that, that's just part of their culture. They'll build entire cities in like a 6-month time period. I mean, and I saw it as we were driving through. There was different areas of the city that they would build that would essentially be the size of some of the, smaller mid-sized cities here in the States, that they were building these entire cities with not a single person in them yet, with the expectation of expanding them out. And they run these type projects. So the same thing for this car show. The 3 months prior to the event, it was an open parking lot, no buildings, no power, no track, nothing. And they were able to put all of this back together. Now, there was a very unfortunate event the week before, or actually a few days before the show. They got rain. I mean, this is in the middle of the desert, and they ended up getting close to their annual amount of rain in a couple evenings. And so that was a major disruption. And actually, when we first got to the show, not all cars were put out, not all booths were put out, but it was that last minute mentality. And then, rain came in, and it really created a disruption for them.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but everything that I did here was the people that were over there had a really good time, a very entertaining time. And one of the guys, Kevin Aguilar from Fuelish Media, we're going to get him on. And, when I talked to him and reached out to him, he said, yeah, it was nothing but fun. He said he would do it again in a heartbeat. And selfishly, I was, ready to go. And then my passport, I figured out once I got ready to send my passport, it had expired about 12 days prior to once they finally. No. Yeah. And I just was at that point, I was like, okay, it was just meant to be that I wasn't going to go. And the whole time everybody was over there, I was like, oh man, this looks like a lot of fun. But nonetheless, one of the questions that I have for you is, how did you figure out where to set that bar when you kind of had to say, well, this is where I'm going to price Domino? Because it's like, to me, it's like, am I going to send my truck? Nah. Okay, everybody's doing it. Let's think about it. Okay, we're going to do it. Okay, now I got to put a price point on it. And then one of the asterisks to that was I was hearing plenty of, rumblings that there was a tax. So everybody was adding another $30,000 because there was some sort of state tax. So was it challenging, to figure out where to set that bar?
Oh, no. I mean, this is in the middle of the desert, and they No, it absolutely was. And, and I was asking the folks at Worldwide and stuff for a little bit of guidance on that too. So, if you felt like you had a vehicle that you could sell in the U.S. for 80,000, and then if you tried to go over there and say, I'm going to get 200 out of it, these were smart guys. I mean, the internet is worldwide. I mean, they can look and understand what the price of some of these vehicles should be. And you're right. There was a $30,000 tax on top of this because there wasn't because there was two parts to the sale. There was what they call the salon, which was essentially a showroom floor. And then there was a live auction. And so there was no buyer and seller, there were no seller fees similar to what we would have here. All of that was kind of included in that 30,000. And so if you had a vehicle that you wanted to get 100, you asked 130,000 for it. And, it's one thing, and this is what was learned really quickly. And the KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that 30,000 was going to them. And so that was a requirement of what they had. If you had vehicles that were under 100,000 and you put 30,000 on it, I mean, that's a 30% markup. If you have $1 million car and put a $30,000, if somebody's affording $1 million car, what's another 30,000, right? And it wasn't as big of an impact. And so a lot of the vehicles, which were around that $100,000 mark, by about the third day of the sale, maybe it was the fourth day of the sale, the Kingdom actually came back and said, okay, instead of 30,000, it's going to be 5,000. Now that change was a little too late at that point. Most if there were potential buyers early on, they didn't come back at that point. And so I know the guys that were trying to work the salon floor and selling cars, I mean, they were reaching back out and trying to get buyers to come back in. But like I said, I think at that point it was a little bit too late.
Yeah, and they probably realized that, right? Because things weren't moving and they were trying to get things to move. And the only two vehicles that I even heard, especially kind of from the genre of C10 world, is the G10, which was built by Scott's Hot Rods, and that was built for good guys. That was about a 2014, 2015 truck, which was a beautiful truck. And then Brad's Suburban, the Carry Y'all,
right,
which is that 49-ish root beer. And, he sold that in the salon, which was a for sale, not auction. Whereas I heard the G10 went for auction, and I think it might've went for 120. I'm sure you probably heard some of that too. Any other trucks or cars that, well, let's just go trucks. Anything else that sold that you can think of?
Not many, those that are other trucks. I mean, if I think about those that were over there, I mean, you've got Angelo's C10 that was over there. Another friend of mine, Scott Movick out of Florida, he had his 55, 56 over there, which is an incredible build. I mean, these were some really, really amazing trucks, and they got a lot of attention. I mean, a lot of pictures, a lot of coverage, a lot of that, but unfortunately the buyers just weren't there. And, a part of my understanding is, it was definitely, from where I was staying, I was actually staying in downtown Riyadh. I was staying in an incredible area that put me up in just an amazing hotel. And you come out and you see the signage. You see the signage of the event. So it was definitely promoted. But I think the big miscommunication out there was it was promoted as an event, like a monster truck show, or come out and see the race cars, or come out and see the exotic cars. It really wasn't promoted as an auction and sale. So I think that was part of the miscommunication that had happened over there. The Kingdom, they controlled the in-country marketing. Obviously, it's controlled by the royal family, and they want to make sure they control whatever message is being shared out there. So Worldwide and Bonnier, the event organizers, they didn't really have a whole lot of say in that, which is my understanding. And then I think there was a lot of confusion on whether or not, if you bought a vehicle there, would it be legal to drive? And because there was a lot of questions of, they've had similar events in other cities and other Middle Eastern countries that a lot of the car guys over there knew about, where they would have these type auctions. You buy a car, and then suddenly it was not legal to drive it. No matter what you did, it was not legal to drive the car onto the streets. And so that was another miss. And it was another thing that they tried to correct in the middle of the show. There was actually a decree by the royal family stating any vehicles bought could be driven on the streets of Riyadh or Saudi Arabia, which was a little bit of a, I don't want to say an overreaction, a little bit funny because there was drag cars in there. I don't expect to see a drag car going down the streets of Riyadh, but that's what they did. They opened it up, and so they were trying to be supportive. It was just all a little bit too late.
Why would they be illegal? Because they're so highly modified and they don't meet like a safety inspection type deal?
Possibly, but I think there's just a lot of control. I mean, you think about those Middle Eastern countries that are primarily, run by single families, royal families. I think there's just a whole lot of controls in place and a lot of laws in place. I mean, obviously, when we got there, it seemed like within the month before, women couldn't even drive. Women were not allowed to drive vehicles. And at that point they were. And I was trying to make a point as we went out to the shows, or if I went out to restaurants in the evening and stuff, I was trying to look. And I think the entire 6-7 days I was over there, I think I saw one female driving. And it's a different culture, right, wrong, or indifferent. it's just different. And, so they've been trying to relax things. But I do think there's a lot of just laws in place that are very controlling over what can and can't be done.
Yeah. And I've heard that too, that those laws and some of the things, but they also are really trying to Americanize it. And this was what they were trying to do, to
very much so
that they could, since everybody's been back, and again, I'm thinking, so many things are flashing through my brain, but I heard rumors of, hey, they were just putting on a show and they suckered all of us, suckered or not. Because I really don't want to be negative about it, but they got all these guys to go over there and there was really no intention of them really selling. And so you hear that a little bit, but everybody that went over there had a great time and they did prove that they could, put an event on. One of the other things was that a lot of people were saying beforehand. And again, when people came back, they definitely seemed like it was a good time. It was kind of jokingly, well, you can't really show tattoos. You're not allowed to drink, and there's no cussing. And we were all like, well, that's what we do at all our shows. So what are we going to do?
Right.
And so, but I also believe in being respectful in somebody else's country and abiding by their laws, just like we, would hope somebody does when they come here. So I'm sure it was definitely different. I did see females that were over there. They were definitely wearing different gear. They were covering up a lot more of their bodies. So that was probably a cool experience, but yet a different, something different, out of the ordinary for your normal, or what we would consider normalcy here in the States.
No, absolutely. And there was a lot of different things to adjust to. But to your point, it was, we were guests in their countries. It was the right thing to be very respectful of all of their culture, their religions. Everything about that, and their habits. The reason why the show was from 4:00 on is, because they had prayer time in the middle of the day and everything stops. If you were in restaurants, you could continue your meal, but they closed the doors. So if it was in prayer time, you didn't go in. And so there was a lot of just, of that type culture that we just didn't know. And so it was a learning experience as we got there, because to be honest, I had no idea that the show was going to be from 4 to midnight until I got there. I actually thought the shows were during the day, and then I was trying to plan on what I was going to do each evening, because, what are we going to do? I'm over here. I've got some casual friends that I didn't really know, but then I made some great friends while I was there. So that I'm very, I'm very grateful for that. But, then I had to completely change. What was I going to do all day? And so that was a little bit of a change. And, but, about the whole thing about whether or not did they plan the event and got everybody over there? I don't think that's the case. I really think the kingdom, the royal family, made an incredible investment themselves. Like that $10,000 that went to everybody, all of the paid trips. There had to be a large commission paid out to the companies that pulled this whole thing together. that money came from somewhere, and it was the royal family. I mean, it was the KSA of where it came from. So they made a tremendous investment into it. The investment that they put in to build the facilities, everything that they did, you know. So I don't think there was any intent that the cars wouldn't sell or any of that matter. I think it was just some miscommunications. I think it was the last minute mentality or last minute culture that caused them to miss out on a few very, very key details about the whole selling side of it. Now, if you talk about the event, one of the things I question is, do they think it was a tremendous success? And in my point of view, I do think they think it was a tremendous success. They had a big turnout. There was a lot of families, a lot of women with kids, a lot of, you know, guys that came through. There's guys over there that I met that I still keep in touch with over Instagram. I mean, just some really cool people. And it was more of a car show than it was a car sale. And I think that was just how it was perceived over there, with a missed message on what the event was versus what we all thought the event was going to be.
Now, when you say you've met some guys, that I'm assuming you're saying they're Saudis. You met some people there that you've kind of stayed in contact with? Hey, guys, I've got Bobby from PSI Conversion on the phone looking at LS LT-based motor swaps. Bobby, why should we choose PSI Conversion?
Ronnie, our harnesses are made right here at home in the U.S. Our product lineup includes the early 90s Gen 2 LT motors, Gen 3, Gen 4 LS VotorTech motors, and Gen 5 LT and LT4 packages. We have transmissions ranging from automatic 4, 6, 8 speeds, and soon to be released our new 10-speed, in addition to all the manual options out there.
Wow, you guys cover everything. How do you deal with intimidation factor when a customer is doing their first LS or LT swap?
Great question, Ronnie. But the thing is, there's nothing that we haven't seen here in the LS and LT world. If you grab almost any motor out of a junkyard, you want to Frankenstein to build together or even supercharge it. Leave it to our sales team to help guide you along the way to the products that you need for your restoration. We have over 10 years of experience in the market, a tech department that is available to help troubleshoot and diagnose any issues or questions that you have along the way while installing your PSI products. Couple that with a staff that is going to be standing by our product with pride, made right here in the U.S. to a GM quality standard. Our team is happy to get you wired up and fired up.
And don't forget, guys, use code C10TALK and you'll save 5% off your order. PSIconversion.com. PSIconversion.com. You want to save 5%? Use code C10TALK at checkout. Thanks, Bobby. I've got Kathy White, Classic Performance Products, CPP on the line. Kathy, how's it going?
Hey, Ronnie, what's up?
What's up? What's new?
We've got a ton of things for the C10 community. First things first, our 2.5-inch Extreme X10 drop spindle. So we've upgraded the current modular spindle to modern technology. This new X10 spindle is a one-piece forged, but it utilizes strong, modern, bolt-in, internally sealed bearing hub assembly. So it's low maintenance. It doesn't move the wheels out, and you can use big brakes from us or any aftermarket big brakes out there in the market.
That's awesome. What else is new?
So we have actually gone back and redesigned our aluminum fuel tanks. As you know, our fuel tanks are the thickest, strongest, and largest capacity in the industry. But now you can actually use the same tank for either a carbureted or a fuel injection application. 63 to 72, it's 20 gallons, and for 73 and newer, 22-gallon capacity.
How about that coilover kit? You guys must be killing it with that thing.
That is such a great kit. It's fully bolt-on. It's easy to install. Strongest tubular arms in the market, available with either upper and lower or just the lowers or just a coilover kit by themselves. All the mounting brackets that you need, and it also comes with dual adjustable coilover shocks. So it's really responsive. It's up to you however you want to tune the compression or the rebound. It's perfect if you're just cruising on the streets, and it's proven on the track.
Well, that's what we like. So if you need spindles, the new X10, fuel tanks, coilovers, they've got it. Classic Performance Products, CPP. And don't forget, use code C10TALK, C10TALK at checkout and save 10%. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Now, when you say you've met some guys, that I'm assuming you're saying they're Saudis. You met some people there that you've kind of stayed in contact with?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool.
There's some guys over there. Some were some U.S. guys that have been living over there. Whether I met a young, I say kid. He's not a kid. I mean, he's 18. He's living over there with his dad. His dad does something with the military and oil and gas business, and so he goes back and forth. I met another guy who was originally from Virginia, but has been living over there for like the last 20 years. And it's keep in touch with them. I mean, they're great folks. I mean, they'll comment on posts that I make on Instagram, and they they'll message me from time to time, and I'll message them. And they were aware when I've got message from them that just making sure everybody was safe here with everything that's going on with the virus. They knew about the tornadoes that came through here in our area a couple months ago, and just checking on us. So I mean, really great folks. I mean, when it comes to car guys, I mean, we know what type of brotherhood, what type of family and stuff we think of car guys here. It's worldwide. Yeah. I mean, the guys and stuff that I met over there, we may have had language barriers on stuff, but when it came down to the vehicles and stuff, there was no language barrier.
Yeah, it's really cool. That was kind of the conclusion that I've gotten out of a lot of guys is like, hey, it didn't sell. My stuff didn't sell, but I made a lot of friends, and even guys that I knew from like, passing in SEMA or maybe Instagram friends or Facebook friends. Then these guys ended up, like you said, like all damn day, they're like, well, what should we do? Then they end up breaking bread and really getting acquainted with one another. And that's kind of a turning point in their friendship. Is like, well, we went to Saudi, we rode quads, we did this, we camels, and we were all seeing the pictures. Now we're kind of flashing back 6 months ago, but it was really cool from that perspective that we went to another country, we became friends, and whether they live in the States or not, and so that definitely was kind of one of the things I took from the experience that most guys had.
Right. No, I had posted that I was sending Domino over. I had some people reach out to me and stuff, and then to finally meet them over there in person. I think of Hugo Santana out of San Francisco. I mean, he's got what's his C10, the square body, the red one.
I'm trying to think. What's his Instagram? Hugo.
Yeah, Hugo Santana.
I don't even know.
Or Santana Hugo, I think is his Instagram, but great guy. And he's somebody that I've kept in touch with. And he, same thing. He's told me, like, if I'm ever in San Francisco or in the Northern California area, he I've got a place to stay. I mean, and it's folks like that, people like that that I was able to meet. I met Gino from Bones Fabrication, in Southern California. Spent a lot of time with him. Another guy that just happened to be from Nashville, who's a big investor in the car world, and he works with the car dealerships. Bubba, I mean, his real name's Mike, but incredible guy. And just, I wouldn't have met those guys if I didn't go on this event. And like I said, I keep in touch with all of them. I send them notes at Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's. And, unfortunately, Hugo's dad passed away recently, but I mean, same thing. Message him, and it really is. It's kind of you start building that friendship and stuff, and you hope they're lifelong friends.
Yeah,
and that's what they're becoming.
And that's what it's all about. And that's what's so cool about our community, right? The automotive, for us, the C10 world, but the automotive culture is just like, hey, we're friends because we met at this show, or we were talking about this, and kind of going back to the forum days. Well, Hugo, ironically enough, I just posted the Cannonball C10. I love that truck.
There you go, Cannonball. Yeah.
Yeah, but I always thought that was Mikey Plays with Cars. I didn't know that there was another guy involved with that truck. So that's kind of funny that because Cannonball C10 has its own social media, Mikey Plays with Cars or whatever the hell. I think it's Mikey Plays with Cars. So yeah, that's kind of funny. I wasn't even following him, so I am now. But kind of funny how that works. There you go. So another, Mikey Plays with Cars, which is, yeah, that's just funny how that works. So I don't know if Mikey sold it to him. Congrats to Santana Hugo. Much fun with the test. Yeah. So maybe Mikey built it for him. So did the Cannonball truck go over there?
Yeah, it was over there. It was parked right in, it was right in front of a divider, but right in front of me. And this is the thing. This is how everybody takes care of everybody. They were kind of putting some signs and stuff out, and I come back and I've got my sign put up from in front of Domino with a description and pricing and all this stuff on it and on a pedestal. And he put it out there. He was like, he goes, I saw you wasn't here yet. And I put it out there for you. And it's like people like that, that you meet that are super nice guys. There was another thing that I don't know if many people saw it or not. There was a 55 Chevy car that kind of came in late that was real dirty. It was that one. It was by Pro Rides. It was Xbox. If everybody knows of Xbox, that car. I mean, pretty famous car.
Well,
it came in the show.
Yeah, people posted it, and it was the windows were down.
Right.
It looked like it had been through a tornado or a dust storm, and that was
right.
Running rampant through social media.
Yeah, and so some of those pictures and stuff. Well, I mean, that was close by where they rolled it in, and what they shouldn't have done is they shouldn't have rolled it in, because typically what they were doing is they were steam cleaning these cars as they came out of the containers. They had this huge equipment set up. I mean, it was some nice equipment what they had set up, and for whatever reason, this was late into the evening, and they decided to roll that car in, and it hadn't been cleaned, and that's where all the pictures and stuff came from. But I'll tell you, so I saw it. When I saw the car come in, I was talking with Scott Movick. I was close by his truck, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go grab my cleaners. About that same time, I saw Jim Ring from Ring Brothers coming up, and he had cleaners in his hand, and he was getting ready to clean the thing too. And that's what we did. We all just went back and we got our rags, got our cleaners, and we cleaned it up before to try to make sure everything was. You just didn't want to see a car like that look like that. And really, it was just dust from the containers. Did some kids probably draw on it? Somebody did. They definitely shouldn't have done that. And that's what it should have been watched. And maybe that's why they rolled it in, to keep that from happening. I'm not really sure what the reasons and stuff were, but a bunch of people that did not own that car jumped in and cleaned that car. And that's, once again, that kind of goes back to that whole car guy community.
Yeah, well, twofold, right? Because you were there experiencing that it was a success, and you knew if it got out or how bad it could be, and it did get out, and it was like, oh, the cars and the way they're taking care of them. So hopefully, the audience, and that's why I really want to do this follow up, because I just want the truth, or I want people's perspective, and yours sounds very positive. And that's the thing, is we have to kind of take some things, with a grain of salt, especially when it comes to social media. And I always try to say, listen, let's talk to that guy and see how it really went. Cause we are very, shotgun approach. We get to make assumptions, and we get to kind of work through it. So it's so good to hear, people's true opinion and the fact of, hey, I did it. I went. Would you do it again?
I would. I mean, barring all of this coronavirus, and, obviously they've had a little bit of disruption over there with some of the Iran militants and stuff bombing some of the oil fields and stuff. And that happened actually right after we got back over there. But I know there's some other tensions. But if you were to take all of those other tensions, this whole virus thing out of play, I would absolutely do it again. And, the first time going over there, I didn't take my wife, and I didn't even really consider taking my wife, but they were so nice over there. Like, I was treated so well. Like, I would consider taking my wife over there with me. And I had friends of mine that did take, their significant others over there, and the same thing, they enjoyed it. They thought, to kind of see the culture. We went down to some of the old flea markets and see some of the, just the old, everything from old buildings, old doors, old window frames, old pottery and brass and things of that matter. Just some of the stuff that we were able to see, we never would have had that opportunity if it wasn't for this show. I don't think any of us was looking at going to Riyadh or Saudi Arabia as any type of vacation destination. But it's incredible. There's a lot of culture, a lot of history and stuff there.
I think a lot of things that the guys that didn't maybe take their wife, or the guys that didn't go, some guys I know did send vehicles and they chose not to go, because it was right at Thanksgiving. That was a big thing for me. It was like, well, am I going to be back for Thanksgiving? My kids are young and family, and just like you, that was a kind of a bigger thing. But one of the kind of comments I heard a lot of people is like, well, we'll just let everybody see how the first one goes, and then maybe we'll go if it's a success. Do you think that they'll have it again, and do you think it was a success from the American perspective?
I think from the the American perspective, it's going to be pretty difficult. I think the manufacturers, the vendors that set booths over there, they didn't get the interest from distributors as they had hoped. Obviously, the cars didn't sell, so I think there would be some reluctance of possible vehicle owners sending vehicles over there again with the expectation that it's going to sell. So, like if you were like me, because I was torn, I made the decision to send Domino over there knowing it was going to sell. But at the same time, I wasn't fully ready for it to sell. So when it didn't sell, or probably on about day 4, when I realized for sure it wasn't going to sell or that nothing was selling, I was okay. And I wasn't necessarily, overly disappointed or, what am I going to do now? I mean, I was fine with the vehicle coming back. And, so for me, if they were to, and I do know, I mean, from my understanding, they were in discussions now prior to all of this coronavirus, they were in discussions of having another event. And so I think proposals were being put together on having a repeat event, because the initial hope was that last year was the first of a series or of an annual event, even though it didn't go the way they wanted it to go. I would expect that the second event, because I really do think that the portion that they missed was the communication about the sale. I think there was a lot of learnings from both sides, from both from the kingdom as well as from the companies that put everything together. I think there was a lot of learnings from both sides that they could easily correct. And I think if they could find vendors and find the vehicle owners, yeah, I think they could definitely put it up. But it's going to be a challenge. I think there was a lot of disappointment. I think there was a lot of negativity that was shared out pretty early. I think they probably have a lot of hurdles. They got a lot of bridges to mend with some of the vendors that did go. But once again, everybody was compensated. I mean, everybody was compensated well. Because that's what I was telling my wife and friends and stuff. I was like, look, worst case, I get $10,000 in a free trip. That was the worst case. I mean, that's not a bad worst case. I mean, so.
Well, in your case, I agree, because your truck was not damaged. Some of these guys were going to interview. Right. They had some damage. And then the other thing would be, and you would consider it, if I told you, but you would say, well, you're going to go, you're going to send a truck. And if you do, you're not going to get that truck back till, March the following year. Because I think that's kind of a big thing where you see guys and they're like, finally, my truck, my car, whatever's back. That's kind of a crazy. Now, some guys, it's like, yeah, whatever. I got 5 of them. I got 10 of them, whatever that, it's okay, but in your case, it's like, damn, man, it's like a kid, you send a kid off to camp and you're like, when's my kid coming home? When's Domino coming back? It's part of your family. And that's probably a little nerve wracking where you're like, hey, I got 10 grand. I got a great trip. It's like, is it worth the stress of my truck being gone that long? And it's probably right there. It's probably like, well, it's close, especially because Domino is back now and back safe and sound, no scratches, no dings, no dents, and traveled the world.
No, you're absolutely right. If it was to come back and have some damages, and if I was going through any of the battles with insurance companies or debates going back and forth on where the damage potentially happened, I could see that would obviously be a huge frustration. And I wouldn't blame anybody for having negative feelings towards that. And because one of the vehicles, when Domino debuted at SEMA at the Flowmaster booth, right next to it was one of the Ring Brothers Mustangs, and it was the red and white 65 carbon fiber sides. Well, that car was one of the ones that was badly damaged. And a lot of the damage, everybody was kind of pointing the fingers or wherever. A lot of the damage came out of one of the U.S. ports on how the cars were tied down and locked down, or even some of the cars were driven and miles were added onto them. And all of that happened here in the U.S. And so, we want to point fingers and blame everything over there of what all took place at Saudi Arabia. I think some of the worst instances were caused over here, unfortunately, And I hate that for those that had some vehicles with, like I said, with added miles onto it or with damage. But the Ring Brothers car, it looks like it wasn't even tied down. It just rolled front and back and left and right and just kind of banged the sides, banged the front, banged the back. It was rolling into their Blazer. They had a white, probably a first generation Blazer, incredible vehicle, but same thing. It was kind of banging into the back of it. So it had damage as well. But the Mustang was probably, I mean, talking with the Ring family, I mean, they were like, it's probably totaled. And that was a very high dollar build.
Yeah. And like you said, it gets taken out of context or the perspective from where the damage happened. And, now I think people are going to we want GoPros in every container. We want live streaming. We want to know what happens with these, with these kids, these babies of ours and the whole perspective. So when Domino shows up or Domino doesn't sell, you're probably, I could, a little shoulder, kind of a weight was lifted from your shoulders, your neck, and you made it home safe. What was the feeling like knowing your truck that you really weren't, looking to sell, but again, and this is your information, but what were you going to sell the truck for?
I originally had it over there. So this is where we went through the whole discussion of where it needed to be. My whole intent, I was going to try to pocket after fees and everything taken out. My ideal target was to try to get 100 to 110 out of it. So you add the 30 on top of it. So I had mine at let's see, what was it listed at? 145?
Well, the reason why I say is, and I'm not, go ahead.
No, with the possibility, because we had people working the salon, and so there was essentially salespeople that were in there negotiating. They had their translators and stuff with them. That if someone was interested into it, and I had it at that 145 or 150, whatever the number was on the ticket, they knew the 30 was coming off, and then I told them where my bottom line number was, so they had some room to negotiate.
Yeah,
and so So if I had that 145 on there, once they took that 30 down to 5, so that took it down to like 120 or something like that. And I gave them a number. I was like, at that point, I was like, if you can get 100, I would take the 100.
Yeah. So,
but at that point, we knew the buyers weren't there. So
kind of like a reserve where you're like, hey, listen, but I guess I just want to make sure that we explain that because, you weren't ready to sell the truck. You didn't want to sell the truck, but it's that old, saying, it's like, well, everything's for sale. Well, is it really? It's like, well, right. It really is. I mean, because sometimes, the money dictates everything. I mean, if somebody walks up and you've got a $5,000 truck and some guy's like, I got to have it, I'll give you 20 grand. You're like, all right, it's for sale. I was like, no, I thought you said it was never for sale. Well, like, yeah, it's never for sale for 5,000. I'm not an idiot. The guy just give me 20 grand for it. So I think the hype of everything was built up so just crazy that we thought everybody was going to just come back and I actually felt like it was going to be so good for the automotive scene because we had even heard rumblings of guys saying, I'm getting ready to build a truck for next year because I want to anticipate it. I want to see what it does. And I'm going to build a build to go over there. And you think about one world, markets and, pre-corona and everything else. But it's like if a truck who is going to sell for 65 here is going to sell for 95 to 100 there. And believe me, I'm not saying Domino's worth 65. It's definitely, in my mind, your truck is a 6-figure truck all day, even in the States. I just feel like that's going to it's going to make our economy and it's going to make this truck world that we see, because we see so much stuff that actually goes for a lot less than it's probably worth when you consider parts, time, labor, everything else. And that's kind of where I was looking. I was like, man, this is going to really help everybody, because if these trucks are going to sell for 100,000 over there, then we were all kind of looking at, well, what's going to happen with Barrett? So if the trucks went big there, then we're like, oh shit, what's going to happen to Barrett? And I feel like it was going to bump Barrett to another level too, because then guys were going to buy stuff from Barrett and then think they're going to take it to Saudi, or it would just kind of go back and forth where you're like, oh, okay, well, that truck's worth that, and that's that was my thought on it.
No, absolutely. And that's why, I mean, you think about the people that was there, the builders that went. I mean, you have Chip Foose over there. You have the Kindig guys. So all of those, Dave, Kevin, Will, all of those guys were there. Richard Rawlins and Dennis were there. I mean, everybody that's in the automotive scene had those exact same hopes because, you know, the money's there. The financial capabilities to build these high-end cars. I would come out of my hotel in the mornings and there would be a Bentley, a Brabus, you know, G-Wagon, Ferrari. I mean, the money is there. And like I said, it just wasn't promoted and communicated that they wanted to be, but everybody had those exact same hopes of, if I'm a builder and I go and exhibit and I show my capabilities over there, I'm going to have multiple orders, and people got orders. Like I know some of the builders that signed contracts for other builds to send back over there. Now they didn't, the cars that they brought didn't sell, but you know, they saw their talents and you know, so they sold different builds. But that's what everybody hoped. Automotive parts manufacturers were hoping, if this was a new emerging market where hot rods or custom trucks or lifted trucks or whatever the case may be, if this was a new emerging market, let's get in early. And so there was so much hope from that aspect of it, of expanding our industry. But you're right. I mean, other builders that didn't go or didn't send vehicles wanted the same thing. They wanted this to be a success. So next year they do build that, you know, that lifted K5 Blazer, which would be perfect over in the desert, or they want to build that whatever vehicle. We all thought it was going to be a big opportunity for the expansion of the industry.
Well, and I think too, if you think about that, kind of just listening to you, it's like, well, let's Ring Brothers or Kindig or something like that. It's like, well, if you're going to drop a hundo on that, then you probably could just get whatever you want for a hundo. So it almost worked out for those guys and those builders, because it's like, hey, I saw some guys that had vendors set up over there. They might not have taken vehicles, but they even had, you know, shop vending booths. It's like, okay, I don't have a vehicle here, but here's some of the stuff that I've built. And that was another thing that we heard a lot, was that our, you know, like for example, Domino isn't really maybe the style for them over there, where we see a lot of long bed, 3/4 ton, step side, slope nose, square headlight Chevy trucks. I see GMC, I should say. They love those. If it's like red, orange, long bed, step side, 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive, not 4-wheel drive, off red, it's just like, it's going to sell over there. And that's like something here people would, you know, they wouldn't even think about. You know, if I see it, I'm going to think I'm buying that so I can ship it overseas, because it's not something that's really popular here. And for whatever reason, that's the style that I see them liking. Whereas that was one of the rumblings we heard was back here was, you know, the style that we have, a Domino, a Slam C10, that's just not their style. At least it didn't appear to be. So that might be something where a guy's like, hey, I'm going to drop a hundo. I'll just get exactly what I want and have Kindig it or somebody build it. You know what I mean?
Right. And that was it. I think that was another learnings of while over there. You're right. I mean, because Domino was not the right vehicle to have over there. And we know that now. But one of the vehicles, the gentleman that bought Brad's carryall also brought one of the Ring Brothers Volkswagen Beetle, which was restored back to original. Incredible restoration. And, you know, I can't remember what it went for, but it was like a $70,000 or $80,000 Volkswagen Beetle. And the guy bought that one and Brad's. So, I mean, he was, like I said, the money was over the top selling item. I'm not sure if most have heard about this one, but if you want to get out and Google the semi truck named Thor, it was a multi-engine truck. It wasn't even at the show. It sold for $12 million. And, you know, so, I mean, like I said, the financial capabilities is all there. They had all the potential in the world. And that's once again, that's why all the hope was there. The exotic cars, like I've never seen a collection of exotic cars that way. And I go to a lot of different car shows and stuff all over, Cars and Coffees, everything, see these high-end cars. And I think I've seen 2 Bugatti Veyrons, you know, personally in my life. Well, I get over there and there's like 12 of them parked in a grass lot and like 8 of them lined up. And I mean, to see stuff like that is just incredible.
Yeah. Well, if they got that many Bugattis and then they have a $12 million semi truck, they like some exotic stuff. Yeah. And I think our car culture will bleed over there. So once they saw some of the different trucks, the styles, and what we have here, and what goes on over here in the States, so that's probably a big thing that eventually over time that will happen, that those styles and that different view for them will be something that they'll take hold of, and they'll dig, especially if they can drive it, when they told that, that they might not be able to drive certain things, and give them some of that luxury. So all in all, it just sounds like it was a really good trip for you. And then you came home, you were safe, the truck was safe, you had some money, you had the experience. How was it overall when the kids got to, Domino's home, your wife, your family, the boys, Domino's back in the garage, and you're like, having a cold one, thinking, yeah, we're back to where I wanted to be. And I've got my truck, and I don't need to sell it, and it's not for sale.
Right. You feel whole again, right? I mean, it's like, it is. It's not like I was sending one of my kids over there, but pretty darn close, because it did have so much meaning to our family. And, the fact that you get it back over and you get everything back and it's in good shape. Because even the companies that sent everything over, the event management company, the auctioneer, all of them, they didn't expect any of these cars coming back either. They didn't expect to have the expenses of all the additional shipment of everything coming back. And the fact that they had to do that, they made sure it was perfect. And I haven't heard of anything coming back damaged on the way back. I think they did a tremendous job of organizing everything. Every car that I saw, every one of my friends, as they came in, they were like, well, it's dusty, but, I kind of expected that, but no damage. And so I think there's been a whole lot of relief as these cars have come back in. I think some of them have even said that because of some of the exposure that it's already being interested in, and because they didn't know it's for sale previous to the show. Now that they know it's for sale, there's potential buyers now that the vehicles are back. So that's a big plus too.
Yeah, but there's an asterisk there, just like Domino. It's like, well, it's for sale because some guy was throwing me probably, in theory, more money than you thought you might even get, because it did seem like we kind of had, I would say percentage wise, I would say 20 to 40% were marked up. But just from the perspective of what American money would be to what people thought that they could get, because it was almost like, again, you jumping off a bridge. It's like, well, hell, I'll go. I'll just put this price tag on it, and what do I have to lose? And if I get it, then it definitely makes it, I can stomach selling the truck, the car, whatever it is. So it's a win-win, really. It's just like you said, and you had the wherewithal to not spend the money that wasn't, in your pocket yet. Where some guys might have, because I do know guys who definitely had spent that money in their mind.
Right. Oh yeah. And you're right. People did mark up. I think most had the expectation I can get 20 to 30% more over there than I can here, because those vehicles aren't available there. I mean, it's a different type of luxury vehicle over there. I mean, they can get all the exotics, they can get all the high end, everything that you can get from all over the world. What they can't get are these American hot rods and these American trucks. And so there was that expectation of getting essentially a 20 to 30 and maybe more % premium. There was some that thought they could get double, triple type premiums. And some of that sticker shock, I think, did slow down some of the excitement from potential buyers over there. Because like I said, they're real smart guys. Anybody can get on the internet and look at the value of a vehicle. Worst case, they're like, well, I'll just wait till it ships back and I'll buy it myself. Mm-hmm. And I'll buy it through the US. And, so there was a lot of that too. People getting overly excited of what they thought. I mean, people were really swinging for the fences and like, I'm going to get an extra $200,000 out of this vehicle that may or may not be worth it. May have been involved in the build or cost of the build, but we all know you typically don't get out the cost of a build when you do these things. We don't necessarily do it as an investment and trying to make money off of them, especially as the owner of a vehicle. But it's a difference in mentality, and it's really what you were if you were expecting that, you were greatly let down. And you saw the show as a big failure and a disappointment. But like I said, I mean, that wasn't everybody. For me, if the vehicle didn't sell, that was okay. And that's, you know, like I said, and as long as everything came back in safe, I either wanted it to come back in perfect condition or I wanted it to fall off the boat, because I wouldn't have wanted to have seen it in any other condition other than being perfect. So
yeah, and lucky for you it was, and that's kind of the best part of the story. I think to kind of summarize it all is, we've heard it, you know, our whole lives. It's definitely an American saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and it probably was. I mean, I think the show, you got compensated, you had a good time. Again, I think the safety of you, your family, the truck, and the families that went over there, and the people that went over there, that was a big concern for Americans, and that's something that I asked Boris, and I did ask Gary, you know, and they were like, no, everything's going to be safe. So that was a big, you know, what if, but everybody came back. The trucks are coming back now. I think most of them are pretty much back. I think there's a few that aren't back yet, but I do, from in the circles that I run in, most everything's back. And, you know, ultimately the truck's back, and, you know, that's all you can ask for.
Right. No, and we're very pleased that it's back, and we're excited to have it back. We're ready to hopefully get this whole coronavirus thing over and get this truck show season started.
Well, you've got the GM Truck Nationals out there in Tennessee. Our friend Brian Ashley runs that, the C10 deputy. And for the audience, check out his Instagram. You've got 68 C10 _ Domino. So he's also got a 1976 Jimmy 2-wheel drive that he just recently picked up. So we're really excited to see what you do with that. And we're just glad you're back. We're glad the truck's back. We're glad everything worked out. And we appreciate you taking the time to share your journey, share your story, because it's easy to kind of jump down that wormhole and think, oh yeah, this was all negative, or can you believe what happened? But there's some good stories out there. And like you said, 5 years from now, you'll be talking to one of these guys that you met there 10 years, and you might be lifelong friends with somebody. And that's really the journey and the fun stories that are going to come out of this deal.
Absolutely. And I will always take this entire event. You know, it was a once in a lifetime event that I will always appreciate and always be glad that I did, because like I said, there's no way I would have had this opportunity to do this. And the fact that I've been able to travel across to the other side of the world for a car show, and I mean, it's incredible. It's such an incredible event.
Good. Well, we look forward to the Jimmy. We can't wait to catch up with you on that. And again, this was for the audience, this was going to be 20-30 minutes. I tell these guys, I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about Saudi and Riyadh, and next thing you know, we're over an hour, and we just appreciate your time. We know it's dinner time over there in Tennessee, so thank you so much, Terry. Again, the audience, you guys can check him out, 68 C10 _ Domino, and if you need anything from us, you know where to get a hold of me.
All right, I sure appreciate it, buddy. You have a good evening.